You're watching The Edward Fowler Show. Now, here's your host, Edward Fowler.
And a very good evening to everyone listening or watching this on YouTube or on my audio platforms. And I was live last night, and I was only planning on doing a live show once this week because I kind of forgot about my guest last night, and then I was chatting to him off air, and then I get a message on Instagram because I did reach out to this next person on Instagram. I can't remember how long ago it was now. It might have been maybe a week, maybe longer. I can't remember, but the reason I reached out to you was because I saw, footage of your work, and I know that you've done some, I guess, pro wrestling in your wild life in the past, and I thought you'd be a great fit for my show as a guest with all your exciting adventures from one thing to another to now doing, as you say, your dream job all around the world. So thank you so much for responding to me last night and for the short notice to join me today on my show. Without further ado, this is a brilliant ring announcer who also had a bit of a midlife crisis as a wannabe pro wrestler back in the 90s in WCW, where the big boys play. It's a pleasure to welcome on the show Thomas. Welcome to my show. How are you?
Well, Edward, I am fantastic, and I greatly appreciate your interest in having me on your show.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, and again, as I said to you off the air, that it's thankful for you for making the time this afternoon to come on my show, and when I reached out to you on Instagram, of course, you saw it when you were traveling, obviously, and I'm sure you would have responded if you had more time if you weren't traveling. But when I reached out, did you click any of the links I sent you of the other sample videos I did, or did you just take my word for it and thought, yeah, this guy is legit, let's do it?
Well, you do have quite a resume. One of the interviews that you did that stuck out to me was Eric Bischoff,
yes,
of course, who was running things at WCW there for quite a while and did a great job. Crossed paths very briefly with him in 1993 when I was brought in as enhancement talent. At the time, he was actually one of the announcers for WCW. He was not yet in the role that he would take during Monday Nitro and all that kind of stuff. So, but you have quite a resume, Edward, so it's my honor.
Well, I appreciate that. And, as you say, Eric Bischoff, who, again, what a crazy time. Of course, as you just said, you were there, and he was just an announcer. He was an employee of WCW before he took the reins of the company and created that wild Monday Night Wars for a few years after that. But let's talk about, though, you mentioned it a moment ago about enhancement talent. Now, a lot of people might not know what you mean by that. In layman terms, it basically means you are, I guess, a jobber, or as other people call it, a paid loser.
Well, I have some friends and family that would probably agree with you about that as well, Edward. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, if you could tell my audience, many of my audience might not be familiar with those terms, but
yeah,
but what do those terms actually mean? And obviously, it's no disrespect to anybody, because that's how you start your role in wrestling, is by being those types of roles before you get to build up momentum to get further on the card, to get hopefully to become a main eventer and to win world titles.
Absolutely. There's a lot of big stars in wrestling who first started off as a jobber. It's a great way to, meet the right people and get your mug on camera. And in 1993, I was only about 6 months into my wrestling career because I was only 19 years old. And I was wrestling on a show in the Midwest. I'm originally from the Chicago area. And I was spotted there by a WCW talent agent, actually two of them, one of which was David Penzer, who became the ring announcer for Monday Nitro,
Yeah.
and also a former wrestler named Bob Roop. And they had approached me and said, look, we think you have a good look. We think you've got some ability. We are looking for some, if you will, jobbers for TV. And, your job is to make their contracted stars look like stars. And even though you don't get the win, you always want to make them look as good as possible by selling and doing everything you're told in the ring. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me. I had a chance to wrestle some big names like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who at the time was stunning Steve Austin.
With long,
he was an attack
blonde hair.
Well, the hair was short at that time.
Oh, okay.
He still had the hair, but it was short. It was a short haircut, and he was tagging with Flying Brian Pillman, the late Flying Brian Pillman, in a tag team called the Hollywood Blondes. So I got to wrestle them, and who knew that Steve would become the star that he became. I mean, he certainly had great ability, and he was fantastic even that early in his career. I also wrestled Ravishing Rick Rude in a tag team match where he was tagging with a wrestler named the Equalizer, and they were managed by Kevin Sullivan. I wrestled a team called the Kongs, who were managed by Harley Race. That was in a dark match. So yeah, I had some unique opportunities just about 6 months into my career that I was very thankful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unique opportunities.
And, it's crazy that some of those matches are available freely on YouTube.com, and all you have to do is type in Tommy Tanna. That was your wrestling name back in the day, and they can find those incredible matches with those legendary wrestlers of the time back in those early 90s. And what a crazy life you've lived, because of course you got into wrestling because you were doing bodybuilding. That's how you got into it in the first case, wasn't it? And
yes.
It's just crazy to think you went from doing bodybuilding to pro wrestling, but also doing ring announcing on the side.
Yes.
So I'm guessing then, I want to know is, why did you give up pro wrestling? Because you were so good at it at the time, and you had the physique, you had the ability. I'm sure all the people in the back were probably applauding your praises and saying you can go really far in this in WCW. What was it that you decided to, this is not for me?
Well, at the time I was doing both ring announcing and professional wrestling. And I did the wrestling from 90, maybe late 92 into 93. And it was about 94 that I just started getting more of an interest in pursuing my ring announcing work than wrestling. It was just something I felt like I wanted to do long term. I always dreamt of being an announcer somehow, some way. So wrestling was an opportunity that kind of just came my way. But my true goal was to be a full-time announcer somehow, some way, either in boxing or wrestling. I wasn't sure where I was going to find my home, but I think pro wrestling was just an opportunity that I took advantage of, enjoyed it, had some above average opportunities. And not everybody gets an opportunity to wrestle, for WCW or one of the top tier companies. So very thankful for that experience. I made great friends through that experience that I still stay in touch with even to this day. So very, very thankful for that time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And of course, you got to experience stunning Steve Austin from, I think at the time, I know he was from Texas, obviously, but I know they were saying from somewhere in California, I think he was being billed out of, which is quite hilarious because, of course, his accent was nothing but more than Texas. But I mean, yeah, what a life you've lived. And I feel like that might have been your midlife crisis at that time.
Well, I mean, I was only 19 years old, so yeah. I don't know if I would classify that as hopefully not a midlife crisis. I hope I'd live a lot longer,
But you don't look your age today, by the way. You're in your prime of your career, and you're doing incredible work around the world. You are, I guess, in many different homes now, doing what you love, announcing some of the greatest boxers in the sport today.
I truly feel very blessed to be in the position I'm currently in, getting to work extensively in the UK, as I have with Queensberry now, almost 8 years. For the past 18 months, I've been making trips to Saudi Arabia, over a dozen times to Saudi Arabia, and to be part of big productions and great world title fights. It truly is a dream come true for me as a ring announcer. I certainly don't take it for granted, because I know what it's like to sit at home waiting for that phone to ring. So to be working on a steady basis, it's truly a blessing.
No, absolutely is. And of course, you just came back from right here in good old Manchester, England.
Oh, yeah.
Over the weekend, and that was of course on broadcast on, I might mispronunciation this, but DAZN. That's how I pronounce it. DAZN.
Yeah, DAZN. It is the
yeah.
global home of boxing. All the top tier promoters now, that's their platform. Eddie Hearn with Matchroom, of course, Frank Warren, who I'm with, Queensberry. We just did a multi-year deal with DAZN. Oscar De La Hoya's company is on DAZN. So if you are a boxing fan, you have to subscribe to the DAZN app. I'm not getting paid to say this, but if you are a boxing fan, it's a one-stop shop for great boxing every week, and you will not regret it.
And how was the atmosphere here in Manchester? Because as you should know by now, because you've done this for many years, that the UK fans always over deliver. I feel like the fans are always devoted to every single fight of the night. Doesn't matter if it's a first fight or 3 o'clock in the morning, they're still fighting. They are always up for the bouts, and I feel like that makes us very different from American audiences, maybe even the Saudi audiences. But I know the Saudis are also very much dedicated and very much involved as well, maybe more than the European fans, but it's a very close comparison.
That's one of the best things about having the opportunity to work in the UK is the great fans. The atmosphere for these events are really unmatched anywhere in the world. The way they get so enthusiastic about when they do the ring walks and singing along to all the different songs, Sweet Caroline, all those kind of things. It's just so fun and so electric to be in that ring and be surrounded by all of those great fans. But there's truly great fans everywhere. Saudi Arabia is just getting better and better each time we do an event there. So that's definitely one of my favorite things about, with my job, is being able to be around all the great boxing fans.
Absolutely. And I guess, do you ever get nervous? Because I know sometimes you might perform in front of maybe 5,000 to 10,000 fans, and other times you might do it in front of 20,000 to 50,000 fans. Do you ever get nervous anymore? Or have you
see this, Edward?
To the fact that you are now performing to bigger crowds all the time?
You see that, Edward?
Yeah.
This is my TV hand. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's an old joke. Thankfully, now that I've been doing it so long, with experience, you get more comfortable. You don't get as nervous. Early in my career, I used to get very nervous. But as long as I'm prepared, I don't really get nervous anymore. I will feel a certain adrenaline, if you will, or excitement. How can you not? Like when we did Wembley Stadium, we had 98,000 fans when Anthony Joshua fought Daniel Dubois for the IBF Heavyweight World Championship. And even though I didn't do the main event that night, I did the full undercard, even the co-main event. And then, of course, the great Michael Buffer did the main event that night. So I don't really get too nervous. They ask me that all the time. But you got to be focused. When that red light comes on, you're live. And as a ring announcer, you don't get a second take. So you really want to nail it when those words come out of your mouth.
Well, you definitely do nail it every single time. So you do a phenomenal job. And I bet it was a great honor to always work with the legend himself, Michael Buffer, to pick his brain as well.
I've known Michael for over 20 years.
Yeah.
But it's really been over the last 18 months with these Riyadh season shows that we've gotten to know each other on a more personal level. We spend a lot of time together, sometimes going to and from the venues together, of course, with his chauffeur, and it's really fun. And I feel very honored to work with the legendary Hall of Famer. Everybody knows Michael Buffer. Yeah. Whenever I'm on an airplane and I'm sitting next to someone and perhaps conversation comes about and they'll ask what I do, when I tell them that I'm a boxing ring announcer, the first thing they always say is, "Oh, like the guy who says, 'Let's get ready to rumble,'" so everybody knows Michael Buffer, and he's a great guy, very funny. A lot of people would probably be surprised at how funny he is. He could be a stand-up comic. He does some impersonations of actors and things like that. Right. Spot on. So great guy.
Yeah. I could tell I could tell by when he comes on the screen that I could probably see him. He could be quite funny off camera, but I didn't think he could do impressions. So I learned something new about the legend Michael Buffer there. And of course, everybody knows that famous catchphrase of "Let's get ready to rumble." It's in our minds, in our hearts for forever. And as I know that you and many other great ring announcers out there have to create your own kind of catchphrase to hopefully one day be as popular or even more popular than the "Let's get ready to rumble."
Well, I don't think that there will ever be another "Let's get ready to rumble." I mean, that is so iconic. But I think the main thing to focus on as a ring announcer is focusing on good delivery, good pronunciation, memorization, knowing when that camera's on, and being able to use your voice in a excitable way, but in a way that people can understand every word you're saying. I think, and there's a lot of great ring announcers out there. I'm certainly not trying to knock anyone, but there are some that scream or do it in a way to where you can't really understand what they're saying. So I think the method to the madness is to be able to say something in a excitable way, but in a way that everybody knows every word that you're saying inside that ring.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Of course, we had a fantastic ring announcer a few years ago, Big Mo. You might have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
He did the.
I don't know him personally, but I know of him. I've seen some of his work, and he does a great job. Really short guy. He looks like he's maybe 5'2". No, I'm just kidding.
No, he's quite tall, isn't he? Quite tall.
No, I'm joking. He looks like he's 7 feet taller.
Yeah. he could probably choke slam somebody.
Yeah.
But back to you and Michael Buffer, because it's quite crazy. Because you worked for WCW, and then number of years later, in the late 90s, he then also joined WCW. So it's like two worlds crossing over again there.
Yeah, Michael was after I was there.
Yes. In the late 90s.
And we often talk about his wrestling days. I love to hear his stories when he was doing all the Nitro shows. Yeah. And, he has stayed in touch with some of the wrestlers from, that period of time. And he's a big wrestling fan. He DVRs or records wrestling shows and watches them on a regular basis. So when he caught wind, because he really didn't know that much about my professional wrestling career, and when he found out about my days wrestling, he was really, really, fascinated by that. And that's such a cool thing.
Yeah, no, it is. That he's now, I guess, become a fan of your work in your short amount of time in professional wrestling as well. And it's great to see that he still has the love for that sport. And I know he's done the odd appearance for WWE in the past as well. And that leads into this. Like, do you have any inspirations, or like, even though you're very settled in doing boxing announcing for hopefully for many, many more decades, but there's many ring announcers at the moment who are doing boxing and NHL and NFL announcing who are now ending up in the WWE. So the question is, if the WWE came knocking on your door saying, "We would like to have you come in and ring announce for something or other," would you be down, or would you be like, "Nah, I want to do the boxing. That's where I want to be"?
It's all about this, Edward. It's all about this, my friend. No. No, look, I actually, in 2014, about 10 years ago, I actually was brought to the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. I did meet with some of the people there, did a little bit of auditioning. And at the moment, there just wasn't an opportunity for me. We stayed in touch, but then my opportunity with Queensberry came along, and I absolutely love the position I'm in. I love being involved with boxing. You never say never, but I'm very, very happy to be where I'm at right now, working as a ring announcer in professional boxing. But I still try to follow wrestling a little bit. I don't watch as much as I used to. I really don't have the time or opportunity. But I'll go on YouTube or whatever, and I'll try and kind of keep up with some of the storylines. Of course, WrestleMania is coming up and so forth. So definitely still love the wrestling business. Would definitely love an opportunity at some point, even if it was just for an appearance or on a very part-time level. I would certainly, love to be back where it all started for me, and that's professional wrestling.
Yeah, that would be dope. So I look forward to that day. When that happens, I'll be in your DMs immediately saying congratulations, well deserved. But yeah, as you say, it's WrestleMania season. So this is why this has been a great collaboration between us. Because what better way to get into WrestleMania season by having one of the best ring announcers on the planet right now, Thomas, on my show. So
I was looking for who you were talking about.
Love it. But tell me about what's been your favorite, I guess, maybe venue or favorite fight you've been able to be involved in so far in your career. Has been a standout moment for you? Might have been from when you first started doing it when you were 17 or so, or even maybe last Saturday here in Manchester.
Well, I will say this. My first time working in the UK was in December of 2008. Trent FM Arena, Nottingham, England, main event, Carl Froch versus John Pascal for Carl's first world title, WBC Super Middleweight World Championship. Of course, Carl won that fight, went on to have an outstanding career, and a young heavyweight made his pro debut that night by the name of Tyson Fury. And who knew he would have the career he would have? So that was my first time being in the UK. I had never been in England before, and here I was flown in from the United States to be part of this sold-out event in Nottingham. And that one always stood out to me as far as, working in the UK, because that first time is the one you always truly remember. But with Queensberry over the last 7.5 years, it's been an absolutely incredible ride, from York Hall to arenas to stadiums to working in the Middle East. It's been absolutely an incredible ride. The one, of course, that I mentioned just moments ago, Wembley Stadium, 98,000 fans, very few performers, whether you're a singer, a dancer, an announcer, very few performers can say they performed in front of 98,000 people. It's a whole other experience as a performer, and I'm very thankful that I got that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I could stand in front of 98,000 people. I think I would just be like frozen on the spot.
You can do it, Edward. And not to mention a worldwide audience watching it live around the world on pay-per-view. So just a little bit of pressure there, but you can do it, Edward.
Yeah, and with the technology nowadays with social media, and if you do get something horribly wrong, it does happen to the best of us, you will then get, I guess, shout out on X or on Facebook or Instagram, and the whole world would know about you for all the wrong reasons. And I guess when you started out, social media was not really big back then, or maybe I've been around back then, but
didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. So
it didn't exist.
I guess for you guys as ring announcers as well, it adds even more pressure that if you mess something up or if you don't pronounce something correctly, then you're gonna get pulled out and you're gonna get basically told to your face on social media about, oh, you should have done that better, or you are the worst person, don't hire this guy again, type thing. All these criticism come firing all at the same time.
Well, it can turn into a firestorm on social media if perhaps you make some type of mistake.
Yeah.
thankfully, in recent years, I haven't made a mistake, knock on wood, that has caused any viral moments, if you will. I'm not trying to jinx myself here, but most certainly today it's, that possibility is there. So that's why you go in as prepared as possible so that you don't make any stupid mistakes. And that's what I do. I try to dot all my I's and cross my T's before I put on that tux and step through those ropes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like back in the day, if you did make a terrible mistake or whatever it might have been, you would not know about it for a few days. At least you get the dust settled, recoup yourself before seeing it in the paper or on local media. But now you got no time to recoup or think, oh, nobody saw that, and you open up Twitter or X, now it's called, or Instagram, whatever it might be, and the first thing you see is people blowing up, talking about that one moment instead of talking about the massive moment instead. So, but as you know, these things happen, but I'm glad that you're a true professional and you try your best every single time. And I know you up your game.
All we can do.
Every time you go out in front of an audience, because you have to. You got to keep it relevant and keep evolving, because you never know when that opportunity might go and give it to somebody else or something.
Well, that absolutely is correct. You try to make the most out of the opportunity you have in front of you. I take it day by day, Edward. That's always been my mentality. I take it one show at a time. And as we're doing this show right now, I'll be packing soon, and I'm leaving for San Juan, Puerto Rico tomorrow.
Lovely.
I will be doing an event there on Saturday. And with that one, I will also be ring announcing in Spanish. So I don't only ring announce in English, but I will do English and Spanish. And if anybody watched the Riyadh Season Latino show from Riyadh, that was with Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions, I did both English and Spanish for that event. Now, English is my first language, but thankfully I have learned how to ring announce in Spanish, and it's been a great benefit to get booked on gigs in Spanish-speaking countries. So very thankful, for those opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You are a man of many talents, aren't you, Thomas?
Jack of all trades, master of none, Edward. Yeah.
When you started learning Spanish, was it quite hard at first to think, well, why have I done this? Why am I put myself through this? Or was it the opposite and actually was very easy to learn?
Well, the one good thing about ring announcing in Spanish, it's not conversational. So nobody's asking me any questions. I kind of have my script that I stick with. Now, of course, you do have to sometimes say things in Spanish off the cuff. But I did grow up. I was lucky to grow up with a mother from Mexico, and she did speak Spanish around the house. Unfortunately, I didn't learn Spanish fluently, but enough to have some minimal conversation. And that certainly helped me when I started to get some opportunities to try my hand at ring announcing in Spanish. So you just do the best you can.
Yeah, and I guess to keep evolving as well, per show, and get those pronunciations in Spanish even better every time. And so, how long would you say you've been ring announcing shows in Spanish then? How many years have you been doing that for now?
I think the first ever show I did in Spanish would have been maybe 2007, 2008. Okay. So, probably around close to 20 years.
Yeah.
I would say I've been ring announcing in Spanish. And at one time, Top Rank Boxing, Bob Arum's company, they had a series called Solo Boxeo Tecate. And it was a Spanish broadcast. And they had their regular ring announcer, but whenever they had conflicts, because Top Rank would do two shows sometimes on a weekend. They would be doing HBO in New York, and they would be doing a Solo Boxeo show that same weekend in Miami, Florida. So when they had to do two shows on a weekend, I would fill in to do the Spanish show. So got some good, consistent work for quite a bit of time there doing that, and just try to do it as often as I can now just to keep it fresh.
Yeah, because again, you get rusty, don't you? If you don't do it as often as you should, you go rusty, and you don't want that. You don't want any ring rust or any forgetting any certain words in Spanish either. So the only words I know in Spanish is hola, adios, si.
Oh, look at you.
That's all I know.
From now on, I'm going to call you Eduardo.
You can, yeah. Yeah. Not a problem with me at all. So you mentioned a moment ago that you got a show coming up in Puerto Rico. What a lovely country. Beautiful scenery over there. So tell us about this event then on Saturday. What's going to happen? Who's going to be on there, and where people can tune in to hopefully see you perform.
Yeah, I honestly, I have not reviewed the card too closely. That's on my to-do list this evening. I mentioned I take it show to show.
You do?
You know, when we did Manchester, I focused purely on Joe Joyce, Filip Hrgovic, and that outstanding undercard that we had. So tonight, I will be starting my show prep for the San Juan event, start my packing, and then I'll fly there tomorrow. So unfortunately, I can't really tell you too much about that boxing event. I did hear that it will be shown on Triller TV.
Yeah.
So if anybody has access to Triller TV, Saturday night, there will be live boxing from San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, what a great platform that is. Used to be known as, I think it used to be known as Fight TV, if that's the same platform I'm thinking of, which is now, of course, being rebranded.
That I don't know, but I was told Triller TV,
Yeah.
They actually had me record a voiceover about a month or two ago for them, and that's what we were plugging was that.
Yeah. I'm just saying it used to be known as Fight TV, because then it went into that branding now, because they branched out, because it used to just be pro wrestling on that platform. Then they went into boxing, then into music, and obviously fight didn't really stand for just for fighting anymore, because you know, got music, and football is on there, as we call football soccer as well. So of course they had to change the name to go with the flow with what they were broadcasting, because you know, as saying, well, go to Fight TV to watch some soccer, and people think, well, I was associate it with fighting, not with soccer. So
Right.
But it's better name. I do like Thriller TV there. So yeah, check them out. And I guess I think it's £6 a month as well. £6.49p, I believe, over here to subscribe. Again, that's not a plug. That's not a commercial. I'm not sponsored by them at all. But we like to tell people where they can go and watch Thomas in action on Saturday night from Puerto Rico, because not often we get live broadcasts from Puerto Rico. So it's going to be a fun night, and I'm sure the fans over there will be wild, because they do get into their fighting, believe me.
Yes, they do. I have had the honor of working in Puerto Rico multiple times, and the fans always come with a lot of excitement. They love their boxing there.
Yeah. What would you say is, I guess, maybe a breakout star then in boxing this year? Who do you think will be on everybody's radars by the end of the year then? Who you've come across so far this year? Who you think that's the guy to look at or girl to look at for this year?
Well, there are certainly so many great fighters to keep an eye on, but one of my favorites at this time is Nick Ball from Liverpool. What a perfect nickname, the Wrecking Ball, because this guy is just a wrecking ball. He is relentless. He's fearless. He's the current WBA featherweight world champion. I think he is a fighter to keep an eye on. I really love his style. He just keeps coming forward. He doesn't stop throwing punches. He's not real tall, but he makes up for his lack of height with the volume of punches that he throws in his fights. He's just a super exciting fighter to watch. I had the honor of doing his world title fight against Ray Ford in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, when he won the world title. And now since then, he's had 2 successful title defenses in his hometown of Liverpool. We were just there maybe a month ago. So I think Nick Ball is a fighter. If you're a boxing fan, if you're not familiar with Nick, look him up on YouTube and keep your eyes open for him now on DAZN.
Yeah, good shout. I like that. Good prediction there. So we'll be hearing a lot more of the wrecking ball to come, and that's, as you say, it's a great nickname for him as well. So, and I feel like, as you mentioned about the powerful in his punches, but also his reach as well. I guess he's got a very good reach to be able to get to where he is. Height is not always the answer.
He doesn't have a real long reach. I think he's only about 5'2", 5'3". So, but he's able to get on the inside with these guys who have longer reaches, who are 5-6 inches taller than him. You know, he's just and he doesn't even sit on the stool in between rounds. He always stands in between the rounds. He always comes in great shape. He's a true professional and just a really nice guy as well. I've had a chance to, speak with him now multiple times outside the ring. So definitely a great fighter, Liverpool's own. He's trained by Paul Stevenson there in Liverpool, and Paul is working with a lot of great fighters now. So Nick Ball, he's got a big future.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about your, prep then. Of course, you take it show by show, to mention a moment ago here on the show. And I would love to know, walk us through a day in your life. So basically, what happens maybe a week of a show and on the show day? What do you do? Do you have any special diet or voice coaching or music you get yourself into the fight mode of the week? What goes through your day?
Well, I certainly am a creature of habit. I do like to stick with my routines, especially when I'm traveling and I'm on the road. Of course, eating healthy is something I'm trying to do. I've recently lost about 15 pounds, just really cutting out a lot of stuff I should not have been eating. So I'm feeling better physically now. And it's really important to physically feel good, especially when you work international on a regular basis, because when I work in the UK, you guys are 6 hours ahead of where I live in Texas. Saudi Arabia is 9 hours ahead of where I live. So your body's going to go through all these different, time clocks. So good nutrition. I try to get a bit of exercise while I'm there, whether it's walking outside somewhere or on the treadmill. And if they've got a weight room, maybe I'll mess around with the weights a little bit. So I definitely try and keep something like that going, because I'm on the road so much. I'm probably only home maybe 10 days a month. Wow. Because of the extensive traveling. So, and then on the day of a show and the day before a show, I always try to get good sleep and then, have my breakfast and focus in on the show, work on my notes, and make sure I'm as prepared as I can, because when that red light comes on, it's either sink or swim, and I want to swim.
Yeah, and you always do. You always do, Thomas.
I try to.
And that's why you're getting the amazing opportunity to get, because you are making the point that you are one of the best voices around, and even listen to you so far on this conversation this evening. Now you've got one hell of a voice, and you should have your own podcast, because you'd be a perfect podcast host as well with that amazing voice.
Edward, I leave that to the professionals like you. I leave the podcasting to the pros. I'm just a silly ring announcer. I don't dare try to fill your shoes.
I think you do a pretty good job. I could see it now. You're having your own podcast series in the near future. Once you're wrapping up your ring announcing career, I think you have a very successful after ring announcing career for sure.
Well, it's always good to keep your options open. I certainly wouldn't rule that out, but right now my focus is ring announcing.
Yeah, because you are in good shape, you're in good physique, and as I said to you before, I think you've got many, many more years ahead of you in the ring announcing career.
Hope so.
Now, another thing I want to know as well, because, these events go on a number of hours. So are you able to go to the bathroom, or do you have to enter intermission, or when there's a bit of a long break between the fights to go to the bathroom if needed, or do you just not drink anything from when the show begins until it ends? Because
I wear a diaper. That avoids having to go to a restroom. No, I'm kidding. Of course.
I'm gonna say.
Of course, you can always find. It is tough sometimes, especially when you're going from fight to fight, and there's not a lot of time in between, and you have to be very careful if you're going to step away from the ring during a fight, because A fight can be stopped any moment.
Exactly.
And if you're not there to get in the ring and do the decision, that can be a problem. So I do try to be careful about when I find that moment to step away if I do have to use the restroom. But it definitely happens because when we do these shows in Saudi Arabia, it could be 6 to 8 hours that you're there working. In fact, the show we just did in Manchester, our first fight was at 4:15 p.m., and I don't think our main event started till maybe around 10:30. So that's a good 6 hours.
Yeah.
So you find your ways, and of course, there's people there to help you with the TV production that can make sure that you're able to step away.
That's good. That's good. Because I was thinking, if you went to the bathroom, let's say, and then next 1 minute someone gets knocked out, and then it'd be a long delay for you to come back to announce the winner. That would be interesting for sure. Like where is the guy? What's going on? Why is
he's in the stall over there.
Yeah, well, that's good. At least you can go to the bathroom. Because I wasn't sure. I know, like some places you can't drink anything after when the show begins.
No, you have to stay hydrated. You certainly. I try to sip water. I try not to guzzle water because if you guzzle the water, there's more of a chance you're going to have to use the bathroom more often. So I always sip on a water just to keep the vocal cords moist.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talk to my viewers and listeners about your goals. Have you got any particular goals you are hoping to accomplish before the end of this year?
Well, my goal is to continue to do my best with all these great opportunities. I'm very, very thankful. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but very thankful to be in the position I'm in. I've got a very busy schedule coming up. After Puerto Rico, I'll be heading to London for the Conor Ben Eubank Jr. event at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on April 26th. The day after that event, I'm straight to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for the Canelo Alvarez William Skull fight week. I'll be doing the full undercard. Of course, the Great Buffer will do the main event. That's the plan, and unless I duct tape him to his bedpost in Riyadh. But that'll be May 3rd. And then straight from May 3rd in Riyadh, I will be going to Nottingham, England for an event with Queensberry in Nottingham on May 10th. And that will actually be my first time in Nottingham, I believe. Actually, no, it won't be. I'm wrong. But it'll be my first time there in many, many years. Good. So, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, that's where I did my first ever show in Nottingham. So certainly that is a special place in my heart to work in the UK. So, but I just want to, stay healthy. That's number one. Number two, just take advantage of every opportunity I get inside the ring, and then to be on the show with you and do things like this in between. I'm also on Cameo now, so a shameless plug. If you're wanting Thomas Treiber to do a special introduction for you, let me know. I've been doing all kinds of intros. I just did one for a wedding. Did one for a sales manager position that a guy just got. So people reach out to me on Cameo to record these videos for them, and they're a lot of fun. So just trying to stay as busy as I can using my abilities when I'm outside the ring.
Yeah, I love it. And I bet some of the requests you received on Cameo have been quite entertaining as well, I bet.
Yes, and I do all of them with my shirt on. I just want to make that very clear. This is not fans only or only fans or whatever. No. I don't know. But no, it is a lot of fun to have people. And it's always nice to have people recognize your work or recognize what you do. And I think I've had maybe about 4 or 5 countries now that I've recorded Cameo videos for people in different parts of the world. So that's a real honor.
Yeah, well done for you, and I hope you get more requests as well, and feel free to plug anything you like as well. And speaking about Cameo, let's talk about your social media. Tell us where people can find you and to follow you and help to grow your fan base as well.
Well, I'm trying to step it up there, Edward. I'm an old guy. I'm like Fred Flintstone with a computer, So I'm trying to take it now to another level as things are starting to get busier and busier. But I am on X. I am on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. So you can find me there. I'm also on LinkedIn. So I am trying to have a presence on social media, but I'm not one of those guys to, post every day and everything like that. So, but in this position, I certainly recognize that it is important to have some type of presence in social media. So, trying to do my best there, but please look me up, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
At Thomas Treiber?
Treiber.
Yeah.
Yep, Thomas Treiber.
There we go.
Treiber.
Yeah, there you go. And make sure you follow him, share him around to your friends, tell him how he is one of the best in the business today, and he's working with the GOAT of all ring announcers,
Michael Buffer.
Yeah, exactly right. Michael Buffer, the man, the myth, the legend.
He is. He really is. He just turned 80.
Yeah.
In November, and he is still performing at the top of his at top level.
Yeah.
It's really amazing, and he looks fantastic.
He looks fantastic.
Ask him what his secret is.
He looks fantastic. The voice, I don't think it's even changed from when he first began to now. I don't think so. It's got the same tone. Because sometimes they say that when you get older, your voice tone changes. I don't know how true that is, but with Michael Buffer, and I think the same with yourself, I'm sure your tones have not changed.
Yeah, and he even had I believe it was a throat cancer at one time. He was able to overcome that and maintain his voice. So Buffer's been very blessed in many ways, and he truly is, in my opinion, the greatest to ever do it. And Jimmy Lennon Jr., I'm a huge fan of his as well. He's also a friend of mine, and he's great as well. But certainly Michael Buffer with Let's Get Ready to Rumble took it to a whole other spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely has. And even his brother, Bruce Buffer, as well.
Yeah.
He's a crazy character, I'm sure, as well. I don't know if you had the pleasure of meeting him yet, but I mean, every time he does those introductions in the UFC, he jumps up and down like a maniac.
I don't know where he gets the energy.
I've
seen some footage of him, but I know he stays in great shape. I've seen footage of him training at Venice Beach Gold's Gym in California. So he takes care of himself, and so does Michael Buffer. He eats very well. He makes sure he gets the proper rest. When you're a performer at anything, whether you're a ring announcer, singer, whatever you do, even if you have a normal 9-to-5 job, rest is so important to be able to perform at the highest level.
Yeah, each and every week, or however times a week or month or year you do as well. And I got to say, I don't think I've seen a ring announcer in the boxing world do something similar to what Bruce Buffer of the UFC does, where it gets to the main event and they do that, what he does with the jump in the air for "it's time." I haven't seen something like that cross over to the boxing side of it yet. So I'm still waiting for a ring announcer with a bit of personality to make themselves even more different from everybody else to do something like that.
Well, Edward, I think you're giving me some ideas. I may pull a hamstring when I do that, but I'm going to try my best.
I love it. Well, if you do that, I'll be all right. That might go viral for all the right reasons.
There you go. There
we go. I like it. So before we wrap this up, because it's coming up to where you are 3 p.m. It's coming up to 8 o'clock here. I want to know who is probably the most famous person you've got in your phone book, if you're allowed to say so. Who is the most in your mind? It could be your wife. It could be your children. It could be anybody in the world. It could be your brother, if you've got a brother. It could be absolutely anybody. It doesn't have to be a celebrity.
Who is the most famous?
In your phone book, would you say?
Well, Michael Buffer was texting me just the other night, so it would have to be Michael Buffer. I never thought when I started ring announcing 34 years ago. I've been doing this for 34 years. Wow. I did my first show in 1991 at 17 years of age. Yeah. And of course, at that time, Michael Buffer and Jimmy Lennon, those were the ring announcers that I would watch to try and learn the art of ring announcing. And I never thought that I would be text buddies with Michael Buffer someday. So without a doubt, it would have to be Michael Buffer is the most famous in my phone, if you will.
Love it. And as I say, they say always, don't they, that never meet your idols. But in this case, you should meet your idols because they're not always what people say they won't be like. So what you see on camera I'm guessing is what you get off camera as well, with all your great friends you've made in your long journey of doing it for 34 years. And just to show you a bit more of, I guess, your age, of course, 34 years ago, I did not exist.
What's that? I'm sorry?
I was just saying that when you were in 34 years ago, I was not around in 34
You weren't
years
even,
ago.
you didn't even exist yet,
exactly.
Edward. So thanks for making me feel old, my friend. I appreciate that.
Yes. Well, I've only been around for almost 26 years. So.
I've got bow ties older than you, my friend.
Well, speaking about bow ties, do you bring any of those retro ones out from the 90s? Every now and then for special occasions?
Well, one of the things I've always tried to do is have more of that classic approach to how I dress as a ring announcer. So I've always liked those classic tuxedos. I know some guys wear sequence jackets and, various different colors and things like that. But I like the traditional tuxedo look. And, that's pretty much what I go by. But, you want to change it up a little bit. In Manchester, I wore a silver bow tie and silver hanky with a all black tuxedo. So you want to add a little extra touch sometimes to it. But I try to stick to the traditional classic look.
Yeah, I love it. And, maybe bring out some of those retro suits or retro attires, every now and then for special occasions from all your years and just go down memory lane. Do a bit of old school Thomas.
There you go. I still have my very first tuxedo, actually. It's one of the things I've hung on to just from a nostalgic perspective. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see how it fits these days. So
I'm sure it would fit perfect.
Possibly.
Who would you suggest to come on this show after you, Thomas, in your opinion?
Well, I know you've had some great diversity.
Yes.
With your guests and so forth. So, wow, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah,
probably the only good question I've had for you all night.
You have stumped me with that one. But no, look, first of all, you do a great job. You keep a flow going. You ask great questions. So anybody that you bring on your show, Edward, it's going to be a great show.
Thank you for that, Thomas. You got at that one. But I see that you are. I got to say though, it's a great name you got following you. I went through some of the likes of your recent picture you posted before showing when I tagged you in, and I saw that you had a brilliant commentator and host, Todd Grissom.
Yes.
From the kickboxing, and he's done boxing as well. And
I'll tell you what, Edward, I think Todd would be a great guest for you, because if you were a WWF fan, Todd Grisham, he started as a backstage interviewer for the WWF. Eventually, they transitioned him to the voice of SmackDown. Yeah. He's a great guy. He is a big part of the DAZN boxing events. A great friend, a great guy. I have his number. It's in my directory. But I think Todd Grisham would be a great guest, and he could certainly share a lot of great stories and more stories, because he spent a lot more time in the big leagues of professional wrestling than I did.
Well, I don't think he does that, but you've shared a lot of insight as well from your time in the boxing world, and you can always say on Todd Grissom that, well, I wrestled Stone Cold Steve Austin and Brian Pillman and Rick Rude, and
that's one thing I've got on Todd. That's one thing I don't think he ever laced up the boots.
No, I don't think he did actually. Yeah, I think you're right there, but you can say you did one better.
There you go.
But I hope, though, Thomas, that you will come back on this show again. I hope, and I hope as well that I will have to stump you a bit more with my questions next time as well.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, Edward. Certainly, anytime I would be happy to be back on your show.
Well, I
Really an
appreciate
honor.
that. I appreciate that. And I got to say as well, did you actually check out more content or just those sample videos I sent you on Instagram?
I did. I did click on a few of them. It's been, honestly, Edward.
Oh, I know
it's
you've been busy, but I was just curious to see.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Edward. I used to tell people, oh, I've been really busy.
Yeah.
I truly now know what really busy means.
Yeah.
And when you're only home, literally, a handful of days a month, and you're in airports, hotels, trains, planes, automobiles, as they say. When I'm home, I try to take a little bit of a break from the business.
Yeah.
But I certainly like to fit in opportunities, like this as well, if I can. So, but you're doing great, great job. You had one hell of a resume there of people that you have interviewed. Just keep it up, and I'll certainly be here anytime you need me.
I love that, and I appreciate for you as well. And you're more welcome to come back on the show. As I said to you this morning, that my show is an open door. Anybody is welcome. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have a good old conversation with you, and to pick your brain a bit as well about both the boxing and the wrestling world. Apologies, we didn't really mention about your bodybuilding career as much, but I know you mentioned that more on a different show on YouTube as well, so I'm sure you can find that using my guest's name on YouTube to find out more about the bodybuilding side of things and all that good stuff.
Well, that was a long time ago. The body. I wish I still had that body.
Yeah. Well, is that one of your regrets then for not carrying that on into today, bodybuilding?
Well, for me, when I was in my teen years, bodybuilding was the sport that I really got involved with. I didn't play the organized sports when I was 14, 15, 16, 17. That's when I joined a gym, fell in love with bodybuilding. I had this goal of eventually competing and being on stage.
Yeah.
And I accomplished that when I was 19 years old. I won the Teenage Mr. Illinois bodybuilding competition. I'm originally from the Chicago area. I've only been in Texas about a decade, but had a great opportunity there to compete, which, as you mentioned earlier, launched me into a position to be trained and become a professional wrestler. So just thankful I've had above average opportunities during my lifetime so far.
Yeah, absolutely. You are a brilliant guy. Stay on the phone if you can. I'm going to now wrap this up the best way I can. And that is by, again, if you want to find out more about Thomas and where he's going to be at different events, or maybe even get the chance to meet him over here in the UK. You mentioned some great shows he's going to be at. You want to find out where else he'll be, make sure to follow him on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Share this video around to all your boxing and maybe even vintage wrestling fans who may remember Thomas competing in WCW. And as well, make sure to check out this channel because we will love your support, and give this video a like, share the video around, make sure to leave a comment for any future questions you would like to ask Thomas, and we'll make sure to ask him the next time he comes on the show, because he said publicly on the show that he will happy to come back anytime he can, as long as he's available to do so, because he's a very busy bloke. He's always traveling and going to different airports and hotels and doing different boxing shows around the world. So he's a very busy man in demand at the moment, which is great to see and continue for hopefully many more decades to come as well. And if you like my content and want to see more of my great interviews on this channel, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. We've got over 297 subscribers as of this video, so help me to get to 300. Only 3 more to go. Maybe Thomas can spread the word and get a few of his followers or friends, or maybe some of his celeb friends to subscribe to this channel to get to 300 subscribers. Until the next episode, whenever that may be, because even I don't know when the next episode is going to be, because I was assuming it won't be until next week, but then this happened out the blue, so who knows when the next one will happen. But until whenever it will be, enjoy the rest of your hump day Wednesday, and see you all very soon.